In tonight's Consumer Alert, more than 13,000 pounds of chicken is being recalled over listeria concerns.
There is a package of chicken breasts in your refrigerator right now. Same brand as always, because chicken was the safe choice. Federal inspection records, court filings, and a guilty plea in a Denver courtroom say otherwise. Some of the weight you paid for was pumped in as salt water before that package reached your store, and the percentage is printed on the front where nobody looks. One brand here looks like the honest option, the one shoppers reach for after deliberately walking past the cheap stuff. Its parent company is a convicted felon, and there is one line of small print that settles this in about 5 seconds. 7 to leave on the shelf, 3 that earned your money. It gets worse as we go. Let's start with the one costing the most per pound of actual chicken. Number 10. Great value. Walmart's house brand feeds an enormous number of American families, and on paper it is the bargain of the meat case. Frozen boneless breasts, a big bag, a price per pound that makes the name brand tray look like a luxury purchase. Now turn the bag over and read the product name. Not the banner across the front, the actual legal name of the food. On a great many frozen chicken products in that aisle, house brands very much included, the name is not chicken breast. It is chicken breast containing up to a certain percentage of a solution. Water, salt, sodium phosphates, sometimes powdered chicken broth. The Food Safety and Inspection Service requires that percentage to appear as part of the name itself, in clear type on the front, precisely because the agency knows shoppers would otherwise never find it. The additives are there to make the water stay put. Salt swells the muscle fiber so it holds liquid. Phosphates change the texture so the meat behaves like a sponge. Sometimes carrageenan, a seaweed thickener, binds the rest in place. You can read the result on the nutrition panel without any lab work at all. Plain chicken breast carries somewhere around 50 to 70 milligrams of sodium in a serving. Brined breast routinely runs 300, 400, and higher before a grain of your own salt goes anywhere near the pan. Now do the arithmetic. Buy 10 pounds at a 15% solution. Carry home 8.5 pounds of chicken and 1.5 pounds of brine. At $4 a pound, that is $6 of salt water bought at chicken prices. Then it runs out into the pan and you wonder why the breasts shrank by 1/3. Water is the cheapest ingredient in any food plant in America. Chicken is the most expensive thing in that bag. Every point of solution moves weight from the expensive column to the free one, and the label stays legal the whole time. Your grandmother bought a bird that weighed what it weighed. Nobody had yet invented the idea of selling water at poultry rates and calling it a flavor solution. There is a reason the brand at number 1 has built its entire business around not doing this, and has been at it since 1894. We get there at the end. The next brand did not add water. It added a promise, then took the promise off the package. Number 9. Simple Truth. Kroger's premium line was built for exactly the shopper watching this. Cleaner label, better claims, a name that tells you the product has nothing to hide. In October of 2014, Kroger reached an agreement with the advocacy group Compassion Over Killing, which had challenged the labeling on some of its chicken. The claim under dispute said the birds were raised in a humane environment. Kroger agreed to change how those products were labeled. Here is the part that matters more than the label. The supplier growing Kroger's Simple Truth chicken was Purdue Farms. The same Purdue you will hear about in a few minutes, settling its own lawsuit over its own welfare claim. Both agreements landed on the same day in October of 2014, hours apart. So the store brand you bought specifically to get away from the big poultry companies was grown by one of the big poultry companies. You paid a premium for a different name on the tray and the same bird underneath it. This is the quiet economics of the entire meat case, and it is worth understanding once. Supermarkets do not own hatcheries, farms, or processing plants. They buy from the same handful of companies that supply the national brands sitting next to them on the shelf, then compete against those brands using words. The words cost nothing. The birds are frequently identical. Think of it as buying store-brand aspirin and paying name-brand money because the box was a nicer color. The chemistry never changed. Only the marketing did. There is a way to check this yourself, and it takes about 10 seconds. Somewhere near the USDA inspection seal, there is an establishment number, the letter P followed by digits. That number identifies the plant that processed the bird. Compare the number on a store brand against the number on a national brand in the same case. When they match, and they do more often than the industry likes to discuss, you have just learned what your premium bought. None of this makes Simple Truth chicken unsafe. It makes it ordinary chicken with a premium story attached, sold at a premium price, which is a different kind of problem and the one this whole video is about. The next name made a far bigger claim than humane. It claimed to be 100% natural, in writing, for years, in national television advertising. Number 8. Sanderson Farms. For a long stretch, Sanderson ran advertising built entirely on plain talk. No gimmicks, no marketing nonsense, just 100% natural chicken. It worked. Sanderson grew into the third largest chicken producer in the country before Cargill and Continental Grain bought it in a deal completed in 2022 and folded it together with Wayne Farms. In 2017, the Organic Consumers Association, Friends of the Earth, and the Center for Food Safety sued the company over that exact phrase. Their filing pointed to testing by the Department of Agriculture's own National Residue Program, which they said had turned up drug residues in Sanderson birds, including substances the plaintiffs argued had no business in anything sold as natural. Sanderson rejected the allegations and kept the campaign running. The company had a strong technical argument, and that is the part worth your attention. Under federal rules, natural describes what happens to the carcass after slaughter. Minimal processing, no artificial ingredients. It says nothing whatsoever about the barn, the feed, the stocking density, or the medicine cabinet. A chicken raised in a windowless house on a diet, including antibiotics, can be labeled natural without anyone breaking a rule. So both sides were telling a version of the truth, and the shopper reading a package in a hurry got the version that moved product. Separately, Sanderson paid $17.75 million in 2021 to settle claims brought by chicken farmers who alleged the major processors had conspired to hold down grower pay. Sanderson denied wrongdoing, as companies almost always do in a settlement. The company was also among those named in the Justice Department's broader investigation into price fixing in the broiler chicken industry. A word with no legal definition is a word a lawyer approved. Natural on a chicken package is doing the same job as artisan on a loaf of bread. It costs the company nothing, and it moves cases off the pallet. The tell is always what a label does not say. Certified Organic has a federal standard behind it and an inspector who visits the farm. Certified Humane has an independent auditing program behind it. Natural has a marketing department behind it, and that is the entire difference. Brand number 2 on the good list has carried an outside certification seal since long before most of these natural claims were invented. We will get there. Now, the brand that made the most specific welfare promise in the business and then quietly deleted it. Number 7. Perdue Harvestland. Perdue is a family company out of Salisbury, Maryland, more than a century old, and for a generation, it was the closest thing American chicken had to a trusted face. The Harvestland line was the good conscience option on the shelf, and its packages said the birds were humanely raised. 2 federal lawsuits filed in 2010 and 2013 by consumers working with the Humane Society of the United States said that claim misled shoppers. In October of 2014, Perdue settled. The plaintiffs dropped their cases, and Perdue agreed to stop printing humanely raised on Harvestland packaging. Perdue rejected the allegations and maintained its labels had never been misleading in any way. The detail that stayed with me came out of the court record. USDA documents, which Perdue had fought to keep sealed, showed the standard behind that humane claim was the National Chicken Council's voluntary animal welfare guidelines, the industry's own trade association, grading its own members' homework. Temple Grandin, the most respected livestock welfare expert in the country, has said publicly that the council's audit scoring is loose enough that farms with genuinely bad practices can still pass it. Perdue also paid $14.75 million in 2021 to settle the same grower pay case that caught Sanderson, denying wrongdoing. And in 2019, the company issued 2 recalls inside a single week, one over wood chips found in a chicken product and one over an allergen missing from a label, and said publicly that 2 recalls in a short window was not what consumers expected of them. Now the label trick I promised you, because this is where it pays off. Ignore the banner across the front. Marketing writes the banner. Read the product name instead, the legal name, which the Food Safety and Inspection Service requires to disclose any added solution as a numeric percentage in clear type on the principal display panel. If that name includes the words containing up to, followed by a number, that number is brine you are buying at chicken prices. Then look for 4 words the water-chilled plants cannot legally print. No retained water. Only an air-chilled operation can make that claim, and it is the single most useful phrase on any poultry package in the store. If you want proof in your own kitchen tonight, use a dry, hot pan with no oil. Honest chicken browns within a couple of minutes. Brined chicken floods the pan with cloudy liquid, steams instead of searing, and visibly shrinks while you stand there watching it. Everything so far has been about money and words. What comes now cost people 17 months of hospital beds. Number 6. Foster Farms. Foster Farms is a California institution, family founded in 1939, and its whole identity is local. Locally grown, West Coast raised. The friendly alternative to the giants back east. Between March of 2013 and July of 2014, the Centers for Disease Control traced an outbreak of multi-drug-resistant Salmonella Heidelberg back to Foster Farms chicken. 634 confirmed illnesses across 29 states and Puerto Rico. Close to 4 in 10 of those people were hospitalized. Around 1 in 7 developed bloodstream infections, roughly 3 times the rate you would expect from ordinary salmonella. Nearly 8 in 10 of the sick were Californians, in the state where the company built its name. Confirmed cases are only ever a fraction of real cases. Very few people with food poisoning ever see a doctor, get a stool culture, or enter the count at all. The true figure was far higher than 634. Nobody knows by how much. Here is the part that still does not sit right. There was no recall. Federal inspectors matched outbreak strains to samples from Foster Farms plants. In October of 2013, the agency moved to suspend operations at 3 California facilities, then held off when the company submitted corrective plans. But under the rules as they stood, salmonella on raw chicken was not classified as an adulterant, so the agency could not compel a recall, and Foster Farms declined to issue one voluntarily. The product stayed in the case while the case count climbed for a year and a half. Picture a car maker learning its brakes were failing, and the only remedy available to the regulator being a strongly worded letter suggesting drivers be more careful. That was the framework, and in large part it still is. To be fair to the company, Foster Farms rebuilt its salmonella controls afterward, and its own testing showed contamination at the parts level falling well below the industry benchmark the USDA had measured. Every raw bird carries some risk, which is why all of us cook chicken to 165 degrees. That is not the accusation here. The accusation is that a company selling itself on the word local to neighbors in its own state ran a 17-month outbreak and never once pulled a package off a shelf. Trust built over 70 years, spent in a season over an argument about legal authority. The company coming next is larger than Foster Farms, Purdue, and Sanderson combined. In 2023, it did something that told you precisely what its label promises are worth. Number 5. Tyson. Tyson supplies close to 1 in 5 chickens eaten in America. If you have eaten chicken in a restaurant, a school cafeteria, a hospital, or a church basement in the last decade, you have almost certainly eaten Tyson without ever being told. In 2015, the company announced it was taking antibiotics out of its chicken, and by 2017, the retail line carried 3 words in large type: "No antibiotics ever." That claim sold an enormous amount of chicken to people making a deliberate decision for their families. In July of 2023, Tyson took it back. The company reintroduced a class of drugs called ionophores and changed the packages to read, "No antibiotics important to human medicine." Tyson said ionophores are not used in human medicine and that the decision followed current science. Both of those things can be true, and the promise still evaporated after 8 years. Chick-fil-A, which had built its own supply chain on the stricter standard, announced a nearly identical retreat the following spring. Then there is the safety record, and it is not one bad afternoon. In July of 2021, Tyson recalled roughly 8.9 million pounds of ready-to-eat chicken over listeria contamination. 3 people were hospitalized. 1 person died. That product had shipped nationwide to grocery stores, restaurants, schools, hospitals, and nursing homes. In 2016, the company recalled more than 132,000 pounds of panko nuggets after plastic turned up in them. In 2019, it recalled another 36,000 pounds of the same product line, that time over rubber. In 2023, it pulled nearly 30,000 pounds of dinosaur-shaped Fun Nuggets after customers found metal inside, with 1 reported mouth injury. Those nuggets are made for small children. And in January of 2021, Tyson disclosed it would pay $221.5 million to settle price-fixing claims brought by consumers and commercial buyers without admitting liability. It also cooperated with the Justice Department under the Corporate Leniency Program, which is the arrangement a company enters when it would prefer not to be criminally charged. A promise that can be withdrawn in a press release was never a promise. It was a marketing position with an expiration date the customer was never shown. There is a brand at number 3 where the farmers own their birds outright, which is the reason its name turns up in none of these lawsuits, about 12 minutes from here. And now the brand from the beginning of this video. Go check your freezer before I say the name. Number 4. Just Bear. Start with who owns it, because ownership is the entire story here. Just Bear belongs to Pilgrim's Pride, which bought the brand's parent, GNP Company, for $350 million at the end of 2016. Pilgrim's is itself majority owned by JBS, the Brazilian conglomerate that is the largest meat processor on Earth. You know this brand even if the name did not register. The lightly breaded chicken chunks in the Costco freezer case that everybody calls the Chick-fil-A copy. Target carries it too. Raised without antibiotics, American Humane certified, a plain white package that looks like a small operation being straightforward with you. It is what you buy when you have decided to spend a little more and do this properly. In February of 2021, Pilgrim's Pride pleaded guilty in federal court in Denver to conspiring to fix prices and rig bids on broiler chicken. Not an accusation, not a settlement. Pleaded guilty and sentenced to roughly $107 million in criminal fines. The conduct ran from as early as 2012 into at least 2017 and touched at least $361 million of the company's sales. Pilgrim's was the first company in the industry to plead, and 10 individuals were charged over the same scheme. In 2024, Pilgrim's agreed to pay $100 million more to resolve claims from more than 24,000 chicken farmers who said the major processors had conspired to suppress their pay. The company denied wrongdoing in that one. So look honestly at what you bought. You walked past the cheap bags on purpose. You paid extra for the package that looked like it came from people rather than a conglomerate. And that premium went straight to the one company in this industry that stood up in a federal courtroom and admitted it had been rigging the price of chicken while you were doing your shopping. The bird itself may well be perfectly good. Nobody has accused Just Bear of mislabeling its meat. The betrayal is not in the package. It is that the money you spent to escape industrial poultry went directly into industrial poultry, with a felony conviction attached to it. That is what all 7 of these names have in common. Not one of them was hiding a monster in the barn. They were selling you a feeling and charging you for it. Next month's list is already being built from labels that changed this month, and it goes out in the label report, linked below. The turn. 7 brands. 1 machine underneath every one of them. A handful of enormous companies grow nearly all the chicken in this country, then compete for your money using adjectives they can retire the moment those adjectives get expensive. Humanely raised, deleted. No antibiotics ever, deleted. 100% natural, never defined at all. Here is the part you came for. These last 3 are not the least bad options in a bad aisle. They pay the same feed costs, the same freight, the same shelf fees. They simply made different decisions and priced them honestly. 3 tests sort this out: whether you can trace the bird back to the farm that raised it, whether the company cools its chickens in air rather than chlorinated water, the only way to sell meat with no added weight, and whether a welfare claim has an outside auditor behind it or only a trade association. Number 3. Farmer Focus. Farmer Focus began in 2014 in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. Founded by Corwin Heatwool, a 6th-generation farmer who had spent his life watching the contract system grind down the people around him. The company inverted the arrangement that defines American poultry. In the standard model, the processor owns the birds and the farmer owns the mortgage on the chicken houses, which means the farmer carries the debt and the company sets the pay. At Farmer Focus, the farmers own their own flocks. More than 60 family farms operate that way now. That single change is why this brand's name appears nowhere in the grower pay lawsuits that cost Tyson, Purdue, Sanderson, Koch Foods, and Pilgrim's a combined $169 million in settlements. You cannot be accused of suppressing a farmer's pay when the farmer owns the birds. Every package carries a farm ID. Type it in and you get the specific farm that raised that specific bird, with the farmer's name and photograph attached. Not a region or a supplier network, but one farm with a family on it. The chicken is certified organic by the USDA and certified humane, which is administered by an outside nonprofit with published standards, not written by the chicken industry about itself. You will find it in roughly 2,800 stores across the East Coast and Midwest, including Publix, Kroger, and Harris Teeter, and it ships direct as well. Now the money, because this is where people assume they have already been priced out. A whole organic Farmer Focus bird generally runs somewhere between $4 and $5 a pound depending on the store, so figure $16 to $20 for a 4-pounder. Roast it Sunday, and you have dinner for 4, sandwiches Monday, and a carcass that gives you 2 quarts of stock. Call it 8 or 9 servings out of 1 bird, which lands around $2 a serving, and every ounce is chicken rather than brine. Set that honestly against a plumped breast at $4 a pound where 15% of the weight is salt water. The real price of that chicken is closer to $4.70 before it shrinks in the pan and you serve smaller portions than you planned. Number 2 has been doing this since Eisenhower was in the White House and was chilling chickens with air before most American shoppers had heard the phrase. Number 2, Mary's Free Range. Don Pittman started raising poultry in California's Central Valley in 1954. His son Rick carried it on and named the birds after his wife, Mary. Today, Mary's sons, David and Ben, run the company. 3 generations, 1 family, 70-plus years, and a 4th generation already turning up around the plant. In the early 2000s, the family made a decision that looked commercially reckless. Rather than fight the giants on price, a fight they would lose, they went the opposite direction entirely. Every bird air-chilled, raised without antibiotics or added hormones, and sold with no preservatives. Mary's became the first poultry producer verified by the Non-GMO Project. Then it did something almost nobody in premium food does, and offered a non-GMO bird that was not certified organic, deliberately, so families who could not stretch to organic prices still had an honest option on the shelf. That is a decision that costs margin and buys nothing but trust. Air chilling is the part that changes what lands in your pan. Conventional plants drop carcasses into communal tanks of chilled chlorinated water, and the meat drinks some of it, which is where a good share of that retained water percentage comes from. Air chilling hangs the birds in cold moving air instead. No shared bath, no absorbed water, and by the company's own accounting, 30,000 gallons of chlorinated water saved every single day. Chefs will tell you it is also why the skin crisps evenly instead of steaming. The welfare claims are audited from the outside by Certified Humane and Global Animal Partnership, rather than by a trade group scoring its own members. You will find Mary's at Whole Foods across the West, at Sprouts, and at independent butcher counters throughout California and the Pacific Northwest. The math holds up better than people expect. Figure $9 to $11 a pound for boneless breasts, or $4 to $5 a pound for a whole bird. A pound of breast feeds 4 people over rice with vegetables, so call it $2 and change per serving with no water weight, which means the pound you carry out of the store is the pound that reaches the table. The brined breast at $7 a pound is not actually cheaper. It is simply smaller than it looks, and you find that out after you have paid. One name left, and it is the oldest operation in this entire video by a wide margin. Number 1. Bell & Evans. The company has been selling chicken in Pennsylvania since 1894. 131 years of the same business doing the same thing through 2 world wars and every fashion in food marketing that has arrived and gone since. In 2005, Bell & Evans built the first 100% air-chilled poultry plant in the United States. Not a hybrid, which is what a great many producers are actually running when they print air-chilled on the bag. The real thing, end-to-end. Which is why the package carries the 4 words this entire video has been walking toward. No retained water. That is the claim a water-chilled plant cannot legally make. When you see it, you are holding a package where every ounce on the scale is chicken, and your per-pound price is your actual per-pound price. The standards run past the chilling. The birds are raised without antibiotics or hormones, and the feed leaves out 2 things much of the industry leans on: hexane processed soybean meal, which is the cheap protein, and distiller's grains, which arrive carrying antibiotic residue from the fermentation they came out of, corn and soybeans, and that is the whole list. Here is the detail that convinced me more than any of it. Bell & Evans frozen breaded items do contain a marinade, up to 6%, water and sea salt to hold the breading on. The company says so plainly on its own website and explains exactly why. A brand willing to disclose its own 6% is a brand you can believe about the other 94%. One more thing about a company like this, and it is not about the chicken. Nearly every other name in this video now reports to something larger, a conglomerate in Brazil or a joint venture between 2 grain traders. Bell & Evans still answers to a family rather than to a quarterly earnings call, which is the only reason a plant that expensive ever got built. You will find it at Whole Foods, Wegmans, Giant, Lund's, and Byerly's, and independent grocers across the East and Midwest. The math surprises people. Whole birds commonly run $4 to $5 a pound, organic higher, so a 5-pounder lands around $22 to $25. But you are buying 0 water, and the birds are trimmed properly rather than sold with ragged edges you pay for and then cut off into the bin. Between the water you are not buying and the trim you are not throwing away, a Bell & Evans bird comes within roughly $1 a pound of the plumped store brand, and it gives you 2 dinners and a stock pot. Bonus, and it does not count as one of the 3. If none of these 3 reach your store, you are not stuck. Ask at the butcher counter for a whole bird with no solution added, and have them break it down for you, which most counters still do at no charge. Then run the 3 tests yourself. Can you trace the farm? Does it say air-chilled or no retained water? Is there an outside auditor behind the welfare claim, or only a trade association? Those three questions work on brands nobody has ever put in a video, including whatever is sitting in your store next week. A company can plead guilty to rigging chicken prices and still sell a package that looks like a family farm. That gap moves. Suppliers change, formulas get quietly reworked, and today's honest brand can fail all three tests by next quarter. We recheck every verdict here monthly in the label report and flag recalls before you shop. Scan the code on screen or the first link below. $10 a month. Cancel anytime. 5 months free on annual. Want just the method? Both guides, $15 one time, same link.